So who provides what? We've got our raw ingredients on the left and the nutrient it provides, whether it's a major, intermediate or minor nutrient. So wheat, barley, maize, your cereals, they provide metabolisable energy as starch, which is essentially converted into the glucose by the animal. And they're a minor contributor to the protein source. Canola and soy, which are both meals, which you'll get in formulated feeds, major contributors to protein. They also, generally as a fat source, provide energy, a small portion of energy. These are the things you'll see on farm a lot more. Peas and beans, they're what we call an intermediate protein. So they're generally 24 to 26%, 27% protein. Peas will supply metabolisable energy as starch, so they're a great feed source for young sheep. The starch in it ranges, but it can be up to 50%. Beans, metabolisable energy is non-starch polysaccharides, so they're a lot safer, but the downside with beans is sometimes you'll struggle to get sheep to, particularly weaners, to come onto them. So you'll see weaners will eat cracked beans a lot easier than they'll eat whole beans, but if they're hungry enough, they'll just eat the beans. So weaner feeds, because we've got that energy requirement, if you can get access to peas and beans, they're absolutely fantastic for weaner feeds. If you've only got limited supply of them, that's where we look at marrying two feeds together to bump up the energy, bump up the protein requirement. So we could put some beans or peas with with a bit of barley, or some lupins with a bit of barley. Lupins down here, protein, excellent protein source, both rumen degradable and bypass protein. Major contributor as an energy source, as a non-starch polysaccharide. So this is one of the reasons why lupins are commonly used as a flushing tool around joining, 7 days prior and 7 days post, because you can go out there with 500 grams and put it on the ground and you don't have any issues. If you went out there and tried to put 500 grams of wheat or barley down instantly, you might have a few problems. So, and we're trying to get that animal to think it's on a rising plane of nutrition. So we want it to get it to spike so that we can get increased conception rates. Rice bran, for the rice growers in the room, it'd be good if you grew a bit more rice, then we'd probably have some more rice bran. Metabolisable energy is a fat source, so it's a really good fat source, and it's really great for actually putting condition on livestock. It's got metabolisable energy as starch. And the reason that occurs is in the process from brown rice to white rice, which is the pollard, is the coating. When it goes through that process, you end up with a little bit of white rice in there, so it ends up coming off. And it's a 14-15% protein source, so it's not really going to be something we need to worry about because we don't have any. Grain mineral content versus requirement. This is going back to our calcium phosphorus story, and this is putting it into perspective of why you need to supplement with lime. People feed wheat. Anyone feed wheat?
Yep.
Barley?
Yep.
Corn? Wheat, calcium, 0.1, barley, 0.1, corn, 0.02. Phosphorus, 0.4, 0.4, 0.3. So that's telling me that there's 4 units of phosphorus to 1 unit of calcium. And we need 2 units of calcium to 1 unit of phosphorus. So cereal grains are notoriously low in calcium. And that's why we need to supplement. So the old adage is 10 kilos per tonne, or 1% lime will give you the right amount. It says here 0.2 to 0.8, which is somewhere between 2 and 8 grams. Bigger sheep need a bit more than that because they've obviously got a greater bone density. So, and then down here you've got 0.16 to 0.38, which is somewhere to 2 to 4. So we need that 2 to 1 ratio. This is a slide just showing the different effects of, well, urea and true proteins. So urea is non-protein nitrogen, and the rate of degradation that occurs in the rumen. So urea is 250% protein. So you put 1% urea and it's going to lift your protein by 3% of the overall feed, or 2.5%. But it's not true protein. It gets converted to ammonia straight away. So we need a minimum of 200 milligrams a litre of ammonia, to sustain microbial populations in the rumen, in that substrate, that ammonia substrate. When we put urea in the diet, it spikes to about 450. If it goes much higher, it's pretty toxic. But then within 3 hours, it's dropped right away and it's completely dissolved. It's gone. So remember those microbes, they use the amino acids to grow more microbes. So it can help with sustaining a microbe population, and it'll help keep a substrate there so that you can keep your microbe population viable. But there's no substitute for true protein because it's broken down over a longer period of time. So that's really important. You often see people trying to make, and we've done it before, by adding urea to really low quality feeds to lift the protein and improve the digestibility. It only works to a certain amount. So we've still got to maintain a true level of protein in there. This is from a ProGraze table. Some of you may be familiar with this. I think this is really important to understand. On the left-hand side, we have digestibility measured in percentage, and we're sitting at about here now, 60 to 65%. On the right-hand side, digestibility determines the amount of energy, or megajoules of metabolised energy per kilogram of dry matter. We're sitting at about 7.5. So as a plant moves through its growing stage, it goes from a vegetative stage into a reproductive stage. And as that plant changes, it goes from having a lot of sugars and simple sugars in its cells to more structural components: lignin, hemicellulose, pectin, cellulose. And that's because it's trying to put up a seed head. So perennial pastures, at the onset of spring or the onset of flowering, or when they hay off, will generally be about 65% digestibility. And as a rule of thumb, they decline by about 5% per month post-haying off. So if we're going to lamb in May and June, we're going to be joining in December. And we're going to be, which is only going to be 6 or 8 weeks from now. So 65% digestibility, we're at 8.2 megajoules. So we're meeting the requirement of that 50 kilo ewe now. Remember, she needs 7 megajoules in a diet. So we're meeting her requirement. Go 6 weeks or 8 weeks, we're going to drop to 50 to 55%. And we're going down to 6.5 megajoules. So she's going to be struggling to maintain body weight at the start or on the end of the first cycle of joining, and she's probably going to lose condition from there on after. If we want good conception rates, we can't afford to have that happen. We need to make sure that she's maintaining her condition score or body weight or on a rising plane of nutrition, one of the two. But this is a good graph to visualise when we need to start supplementary feeding if we're going to choose to do that. With your annuals, they start off higher, so they'll generally hay off at 70% digestibility, but they drop at about 10% per month. So they drop away a lot faster. Our weaners generally need about 10 megajoules of energy per day to keep them on a rising plane of nutrition and keep them moving forward. Weaners don't have the capacity to store fat, so they've got to keep growing. We need them to keep moving forward. If we're down here, it's too late. At haying off, we either need to have somewhere for our weaners to go, which is better pasture, or we need to make a decision on what we're going to do with them, whether we sell them, whether lamb portion, whether we keep them and feed them. So you're lucky, and if you get a thunderstorm, you're going to get green pick through your feed. But you often see feed that's sort of this high, it's gone to seed, and it'll be a pale straw green. You know, it's just a light greeny colour, and most of the time you'll look at it and you'll go, oh yeah, that's all right, that'll do the job. And it's not until you get your weaners in a few weeks later that you realise they've started to slip. And one of the first signs that you'll see weaners start to slip, and people use the term all the time, is they've started to go to wool. Is everyone familiar with that term? Had to shear the lambs that started to go to wool. Now, the reason they've started to go to wool is they haven't started to go to wool, they're still growing wool anyway. The nutrients is just started to move out of the feed, so they're not getting the energy that they require, so they're not going to put the condition into the wool growth, and the wool just dries out. So you go and touch a lamb, you know, that's been on irrigated feed through the spring, they're greasy, and they're, you know, heavy, nice, fresh, linty wool. So that's where that term comes from. It means when they've started to go to wool, we're not meeting their energy requirements. So we need to do something about it. So this is out of a Department of Ag and Food, Western Australia, 2005. They did a fantastic drought manual in 2005. It's still online, and a lot of the stuff in these books, you know, they've resourced it and put it all together, so there's bits and pieces out of it. But this is another slide saying digestibility and energy decline of dry feed over the summer months. So if our digestibility is sitting at 55%, the energy in that is going to be 8 megajoules in December. This is where we're at once we're in the joining. And this is the intake that can be realised on that type of pasture for a 50 kilo non-pregnant medium frame ewe. So this is measured in tonnes of dry matter a hectare as feed on offer. So if there's half a tonne, 1 tonne, 2 tonne. Quite often at the back end of spring, we could have a tonne of feed on offer pretty comfortably. Top of your boots, no worries. 55% digestibility means she can eat 0.56 of a kilo. 560 grams of that 8 megajoules she can actually consume. So that means she's only going to get a bit over 4 megajoules, 4.5, 4.2 megajoules out of that feed, even though there's a good 1 tonne body or 1,000 kilos of feed in the paddock. So that's going to give you a starting point to determine how much you need to supplement that ewe. Because if you know, and this is all, you know, to be used as a general guide, if you know that she can only sort of roughly get half a kilo or take in about half a kilo of that, and she's going to get about 4, therefore she's going to get somewhere around 4 megajoules out of her diet, and she needs 7 minimum, we've got a deficit of 3. If we know the energy content of our supplementary feed, barley, is going to be 13 megajoules, then we can work out that your 3 divided by your 13 is going to give the amount of grams that you need to feed that ewe to meet her maintenance requirements. So that can go a long way, just understanding a little bit about your pasture and what the feed on offer and the digestibility of it is, can go a long way to determining how much you need to feed.